Interlude of Magic. Jaden wasn't sure if he was actually getting better at magical combat. He stopped counting how many times magic had killed him after 20. It also hasn't helped the fact that he has been getting increasingly hungry and lethargic each go-around. Sure, magic has been saying he's been lasting longer in every round, but he wasn't sure if he was actually improving, or if his hunger and lethargy were just screwing around with his perception of time. It also didn't help that he was getting a constant headache whenever magic would use some kind of new spell. At first, it was a mild, manageable buzzing sensation in the back of his head, but eventually it evolved into a rather painful headache. "Jaden," Magic said, snapping their fingers in front of Jaden's face. The mortal startled and quickly looked at Magic. "What?" Jaden slurred. "Well, at least your magic has gotten better. You're tired and hungry, right?" Magic asked, and Jaden nodded silently. "Alright, time for a break," Magic said. They made a small sweeping gesture with her hand, and the longest picnic blanket that Jaden has ever seen appeared on the ground. On the blanket, there were several fruits and vegetables. "Sit and eat," Magic said, gesturing to the blanket. Jaden walked over and sat down on the blanket and grabbed one of the fruits, an apple. Although it didn't look like a normal apple, it was completely and perfectly cherry red, and it was oddly perfect looking. No bruises or abrasions, and it had a perfect shape. Jaden twisted the stem off the presumed apple and then split it in half. He smelt the inside of the fruits, and it smelled like an apple. He then gave it a tentative lick, and it tasted like an apple. Finally, Jaden bit down on the fruits. It tasted like an apple, but not like a normal apple. It tasted like pure apple. Weirdly, the apple was delicious, and it tasted extremely good, bordering on unnaturally good. "What kind of apple is this?" Jaden asked Magic. "An apple," Magic responded cheerfully. Jaden had a look of confusion, but continued to eat the apple. When Jaden finished the apple, he picked up a cluster of green grapes. Although the green was closer to a bright lime green, bordering on neon. Jaden pulled a grape from its stem and popped it in his mouth. There was an audible crunch as he bit down on the grape. Jaden paused as the grape's juice covered his mouth. Just like the apple, the grape tasted like pure grape. And, just like the apple, the grapes were strangely delicious. "Let me guess, these are grapes," Jaden said dryly after finishing half the cluster. "Now you're getting it," Magic said. They picked up an orange and started to peel it. They popped a slice in their mouth and hummed at the taste. "I would savor this if I were you. No human has been able to taste these fruits in 20,000 years. Jaden nearly choked on the grape after hearing that. 20,000 years. Didn't Gold say something happened around that time? Eden, the garden, was destroyed 20,000 years ago. Jaden dropped his grapes and stared at the food around him. Are these from Eden?" Jaden said, a small, abject form of horror at the realization that he was eating something that was probably somewhat sacred. "Yep," Magic said. "Here." Magic tossed an orange at Jaden. The mortal caught it and stared at it. "Should I be even eating this?" Jaden said, looking at the orange. "Duh, it's food. You're supposed to eat it." "But it's from Eden," Jaden argued. "And what's your point?" Magic asked, mystified. Isn't that like sacrilegious or something? What? Magic said. They had a look of amusement crossed with shock. Jaden, just eat the goddamn food, Magic said, rubbing the bridge of their nose. Seemingly to send their point across, a slice of the orange vanished and showed up in Jaden's mouth. You know what? While you eat, we're gonna go over some more things that you should probably know. Like what? Jaden said, after swallowing the slice of orange in his mouth. Let's go with the origins of human magic and your soul, and basic anatomy of magical creatures. And why do I need to know this? Jaden said, picking up and eating a banana. Gee, I wonder if learning the source of your internal magic is important, Magic said, sarcasm dripping from their voice. As for the magical creature anatomy, you'll learn that soon enough. Jaden hummed at that vague answer. I'll start with a question, and I want you to answer, Magic said, pointing a pointer at Jaden. What is it? Jaden said, grabbing a watermelon. Where do you think your soul resides? Or, rather, where do you think is the origin of your soul? I don't know, Jaden said intelligently, as he conjured a knife to cut into the watermelon. Jaden carefully cut into the watermelon as he spoke. If I had to guess, the brain, probably. It's the most important organ in the body and, the mind, Jaden said as he cut through the watermelon. He banished the knife and conjured up a scooper in its place. He paused before banishing the scooper to reconjure a partial construct of the same scooper. That's about half right, Magic said as they pointed to a whiteboard that was suddenly behind them. On the whiteboard was a diagram of a person. Magic smacked the pointer over the person's heart. The heart is the origin of human souls, but, as you said before, the soul does partially reside in the brain. Well, technically, not really, but I'll get into that. When you're around the ages of 4 to 7, that's when your soul becomes fully matured and becomes a functioning soul. What do you mean, fully matured? Jaden said, cutting open a cantaloupe. In this universe, infantile amnesia is the indicator of a soul being fully developed, and a person having a fully functioning soul. Prior to that, though, the soul a human possesses is simply a mass of energy. So, what happens if someone's soul doesn't fully mature? You mean if someone were to die? Depends on the conditions. If the soul someone possessed was a reincarnated soul, then the soul will simply be sent back into the cycle, and a new host body will be given to that soul. However, if it's a newly created soul, it will simply vanish, as if it never existed. Could you imagine if that system wasn't in place? Do you know how many souls would be in the afterlives? Magic let out a dry, almost manic-sounding chuckle. By my name, heaven would turn into a glorified daycare. Magic started to genuinely laugh. Yeah, that sounds fun. Spending the rest of your afterlife with millions, if not billions of things ranging from zygotes to fetuses. Magic got a grip on themselves and calmed down. That being said, don't concern yourself with it. It doesn't matter to you, Magic said with a small shrug. Now, where was I? Right, the origin of the soul. I was the one who created the original souls, as well as the many variations of souls in the whole of creation. In this universe, souls stemmed from the Curse of Eden, or Eden's Curse. Something formed in Magic's hands, and wordlessly they tossed the item towards Jaden. Jaden quickly caught the item and looked it over. It appeared to be some kind of organic thing, vaguely looking like a fruit. Jaden conjured a knife and cut into the thing. There were seeds inside. He leaned in close to smell the item. He frowned at the strangely nondescript scent. Don't eat it. I'd rather like not needing to separate you from it. I'm going to assume this thing is both magical and biblical, Jaden said, holding up the object. Correct. But do you know the name of this fruit? Magic questioned, with a coy smile. It was rather obvious what this was when Magic said it was a fruit. This is the forbidden fruit, Jaden said, suddenly rather uncomfortable with holding what was probably a cursed item. Magic bobbed their head from side to side a little as they considered Jaden's answer. Good enough. This is the fruit of knowledge, also known as the forbidden fruit or the soul fruit. Magic slowly curled their finger up, and the forbidden fruit floated out of Jaden's hands. This fruit was the mechanism of how souls were given to humanity. The first human to consume this fruit was Lilith. However, instead of taking a singular bite of the fruit, she consumed the whole thing, simultaneously rendering her to be the first immortal human, and also the first human capable of magic. She did not, however, share the fruit with Adam, so the rest of humanity did not receive their souls at that point. Which is partially why Eve was created. Eve and Adam both did what they were supposed to do, take a single bite out of the same fruits. And so, humanity as a whole got their souls approximately 20,000 years ago. Cut to changing humanity's mitochondria to match Eve's and wiping out Neanderthals and other hominids, as well as some other things, and bada bing, bada boom, humanity has their souls and capacity for magic. Wait, what? Yeah, it was quite the busy time, Magic mused. Anyways, back to your soul. Your soul is a natural magical battery. It produces its own magic and circulates that magic throughout your body. So if you're clever and trained enough, you can cast from any part of your body. Now, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Humans naturally build up magic, and when their souls can't contain any more, it gets expelled. Now, pop quiz. Is luck real? This sounds like a trick question, Jaina said dryly. Answer the damn question, Magic said curtly. Yeah, sure, Jaden said dismissively. He got a grape thrown at him for his response. You really know how to have fun, don't you? Magic said dryly. Well, yes, luck is a real thing that can be manipulated. Which is something I'm going to have to teach you later, Magic said. When a soul expels its magical reserves, that magic warps reality and influences the timeline a little bit. Well, that little bit depends how strong the soul is. Moving on to the more technical aspects of your soul, Magic said, waving away the diagram on the board behind them. Your soul is technically indestructible, Magic said, elongating the word. Your soul can be damaged, it can be torn apart, it can even be obliterated. But if either you survive or a fragment of your soul survives, your soul will regenerate. The speed of this regeneration depends on a couple of factors. The main two are the strength of the soul and whether or not you can use your internal magic. However, if your soul doesn't regenerate and you were to die, well, you would cease to exist. You don't get the option to re-enter the cycle. That's grim, Jaina muttered. It is what it is, Magic dismissed. Anyways, the flow of magic internally is divided into two main parts, the pools and your internal ley lines. The system is pretty similar to your body's circulatory system, with the pools of magic being located around your arteries, heart, brain, and other vital organs. With the internal ley lines, however, it's a bit more complicated. People whose internal magic is inactive only have their ley lines active around their veins. However, if someone does have their internal magic active, then their internal ley lines will also extend to their nervous system. Why are they called internal ley lines? Jaden asked. Because the people that came up with the terminology based off Earth's ley lines and magic-dense areas. So, you didn't come up with all of this? Magic snorted. Why the hell would I come up with this? It's you humans that like complicating things. Magic said with a smirk. Magic flipped over the whiteboard. It was blank, with the words magical creatures on the top of the board. Alright, let's move on to magical creatures. What do you think magical creatures are? Magic asked, pointing their pointer at Jaden. Creatures made from magic? Jaden guessed, partially hoping that the answer is as obvious as it sounds. Correct. Magical creatures are any kind of being that are made from or have some level of magic inside of them. It's more of a catch-all term rather than some kind of defined category, because it includes a lot of things, anything ranging from angels to humans. Wait, why are humans counted? Jaden asked. Magic's body shifted is the best descriptor Jaden can come up with over to Jaden. Magic tapped a finger over Jaden's heart. Your soul, remember? Yeah, but humans aren't normally magical. What's your point? Humans might not all utilize their magic, but that doesn't mean they don't have magic. Magic shifted over to the whiteboard. We're getting off topic. Let's go over basic biology, because that's all you'll really need to know. Magic said, flipping the board over. There were two silhouette diagrams of a person and a dragon. The specifics on certain biological aspects are irrelevant. All you need to know are the two main parts, the shadow and the physical. The diagram then split in two. One diagram was still a silhouetted picture, while the other diagram was a pure blue color. To start, the physical is the literal body or embodiment of a magical creature. A shadow is what that creature represents. It's their symbolism, their mythos, what they represent for the people, and even what concepts they are associated with. Both the physical and shadow work together to create the whole being. However, the physical tends to be older than the shadow, so it usually has more weight in how a magical creature is. And so the physical can influence and decide which part of the shadow is either expressed or used. For example, the earthbound gods. Physically, most of the more well-known gods are vastly older than their myths, but their shadows are formed from those myths. In most cases, it amplifies their existing power. Let's take Zeus, for instance. He's still well-known in the Western world. Physically, Zeus is, rounding up, approximately 66 million years old. Taking into account how divine power scales over time, Zeus currently should only have around a galaxy's level in terms of magical power. However, he is much closer to universal in terms of magical power, due to his shadow modifying and amplifying his existing power. The Greeks believed that Zeus's master bolt had enough power to literally shake the universe, and then the Romans believed that his normal thunderbolts could do the same. Both civilizations also believed that the universe was infinite in size, just to give you some extra perspective. This belief in what Zeus' thunderbolts can do is part of his shadow. His physical side took that aspect of his shadow and incorporated it to his greater whole. Jaden blinked at that. That's insane. How strong are the gods of Earth? Surely with their myths, they should all be, well, omnipotent, right? Magic let out a dry laugh. They should, shouldn't they? That's why there are universal rules and regulations to keep their power in check, especially when they are in the mortal realm. So while most of them hold such power within their divine realms, when they're in the mortal realm, they are significantly restricted in what they can and cannot do. Still using Zeus as an example, when he's in the mortal realm, he only really has a continental level of magical power. That's still really insane magic, Jane said. Magic only shrugged in response. That's just how the universe functions, Magic said. The words sounded tired. Jaden raised an eyebrow at Magic. Magic rubbed their eyes and blinked a couple of times and stared at Jaden. Anyways, this phenomena also affects humans too. For example, MLK. He was, and to some extent still is today, the face of civil rights. If someone were to say civil rights, the average American would probably think of Dr. King. King was human. and he made mistakes, just like any other person. Yet he is held on a pedestal of sorts, a kind of paragon of equality for everyone. His mistakes are unmentioned and generally unknown, and almost never brought up. For all intents and purposes, the human that was MLK has been pretty much replaced by the idea that is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. King's legacy, his own personal mythos, has outlived and overshadowed who he was as a person. So his soul, all that remains of his physical self, changed in response. Now I just realized that I probably shouldn't divulge that kind of information to you yet, Magic said, looking off to the side. I feel like I don't need to tell you that this also affects things that aren't human or divine, right? Jaden nodded in confirmation. I, kinda assumed that with the diagrams, the hybrid said, lightly waving his hand towards Magic's whiteboard. Cool, Magic said, nodding a little. They put their pointer down on the whiteboard, then knocked it over. Before the whiteboard hit the ground, it simply vanished, like it never existed. Then Magic just stared, likely staring out into nothing. They blinked, seemingly waking up from whatever trance they were in. Anyways, Magic said suddenly, with a loud clap, stirring Jaden from his thoughts. I'll teach you how to use your temporal abilities tomorrow. I'm tired. Night, Magic said, waving a hand before they vanished. A second later, the picnic blanket Jaden was sitting on and the food from Eden vanished, being replaced by a sleeping bag. Slowly, the electric blue sky dimmed down to show the many multiverses and dead universes. Jaden should sleep. Magic would want him to sleep, but he couldn't. He was far too awake. How long has he been awake? Time was extremely difficult to keep track in this place. No day-night cycle, but something told Jaden that he has only been awake for around 6 hours. Idly, Jaden waved his hand in the air, condensing the surrounding magic around his hand. With magic, he should be able to just will anything he wants into existence. Jaden flicked his hand, and the magic around him dissipated into nothing. He sighed, then stood up. He was going to continue to practice.